Those pants are amazing.
Hey, everybody.
Keep it rolling. You know her from You're Next and Puppet Master, Barbara Crampton. Yeah, so is mine. All right, let's bring out the gentleman from Re-Animator and Bride of Re-Animator, Mr. Bruce Abbott. And Herbert West himself, Jeffrey Cove. Can't see anybody out there.
Your security blankets?
Jeffrey, I've watched this movie more times than
Nothing secure about
Oh.
Re-Animator.
I get warm feelings by seeing that cat get thrown around. I don't, I'm an animal lover. You guys know this.
Can I point something out to you?
Please.
Just one thing. There is no cat. That is the beauty of that scene, right, Bruce? There's no cat. It is sound effects, light swinging, actors being very specific, hitting things. There's no cat. It's called cinema.
Well, here we are. You guys are doing a panel at Texas Frightmare on Saturday. But we're here celebrating Re-Animator and Bride of Re-Animator. Guys, this is a movie that is discovered and rediscovered and loved and brought up in mainstream cinema like American Beauty and stuff like that. I mean, it's wild, the enduring power of Re-Animator. What is it? What's the quality? What are people responding to?
Oh, the goo. Right? The blood, the passion, the depth of the loss, the depth of creation, and being able to control life.
I think it has to do with just, we all know that death is... Now I know how foolish I've been.
Look to your right.
But that, we're dealing with impossible things. We really are. To defeat death is something that mankind has grappled with since the cave, and it's just a great treatment of that. It's an impossible task, and yet we prevail, sort of, because they're never quite right when they come back. The work continues.
Well, I think behind every great story is great characters, and I think you guys help elevate that.
Thanks.
I also think that, there is the story that Jeffrey's talking about, and Kathleen is saying, but I also think there was something about that movie that, there was horror and there was comedy in it, and it's very hard to do a horror comedy correctly or right, or something that feels really real. And there was some magic there with the horror and the comedy that just made it feel like a magical movie as well.
Yeah, it hit kind of a tone that was just right.
I think it was the true love. It was the true love between you two that started it. When there is a real connection, when there's a real relationship, and the connection that you both had, the two doctors, there was those relationships. And I think if the relationships are false, it doesn't play.
I think it also examines who's bad in this movie. I mean, it sort of starts out that, maybe I'm the real bad guy here. Well, it turns out that there's someone worse than me. And he we defeat that. These are basic story elements that are examined. So
Shakespearean.
very Shakespearean, and we brought a lot of energy to it.
Well, you're both real fine actors. I mean, you have such a history of depth, you
You know,
know.
Bruce and I didn't know each other when we started, but we knew a lot of people in common. And so we kind of had a, you know, we were really on the same wavelength. And that was a blessing for me, because you never know who you're, you know, paired up with.
I've heard people talk about this movie, specifically Mick Garris says that it's like a horror opera because it is bigger than life and it is very theatrical, and you know, all of us came from the theater, and of course it was the first thing that Stuart Gordon ever directed, and he was, you know, very largely a theater person, and this movie is very emotive. You know, it's big. It's not subtle.
No.
You know, it has that quality to it as well. And like, you know, when we rehearsed for about 3 weeks before we started the movie. I've talked about this before. I thought, oh, this was one of my first movies I ever did, and we rehearsed for so long, and I thought, oh, this is how they do it in Hollywood. They rehearse all the movies, and I've never had that experience since that time. Maybe I've gotten a read-through or, you know, a phone call.
You know, there may be a lesson in that, Barbara. It's like, maybe they ought to try that a little more often.
Yeah.
Because we showed up, we know what we have to do. There was no time to sort of
Work it out on the
rework
set.
things
No.
or figure it out in time, because, you know, we'd already done our homework. So we came ready for the test.
And we didn't get paid for our rehearsal
No,
time,
we didn't.
which was fine. Like, I didn't care. I was up for that. I was like, yeah, we're making a movie. Let's rehearse. But now, you know, they want you to get paid for the rehearsals. I'll still rehearse if somebody wants me to do that, and I don't care if you pay me or not. But I don't know, it's sort of frowned upon. They just don't do it
it's
anymore unless they pay you.
money.
Yeah, there's just no time. No time for any of that.
There's no time? Well, there is time.
Well, what do we?
There
What do
can
we?
be
Well, there can be. Yeah, there
You gotta
can be.
build
But you
that
get like
in.
2 days.
There's time. You just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, Stuart, coming from a theater background, were there any specific dramatic exercises that he brought from that theater world that he injected into this process? Injected?
Oh, hell no.
Tons.
We'd already been through a plethora
about?
of theater exercises.
Yeah.
A little beyond theater exercises.
The only thing that Stuart did do is he told Bruce and I that, listen, I have a field trip for you. And I've already set it up. You go down on Tuesday or something to the LA morgue. And there's a guy down there who will meet you and show you around. And we were like,
Didn't he meet us outside afterwards?
I don't know,
He's
because
like, I'm not coming in.
No,
You guys bust on in.
yeah, I
I'll
don't-
meet you out here later.
I don't think so. No, we were alone. We were.
He was waiting outside to pick us up.
Yeah, probably with a grin on his face. But it was truly, it was really, really pivotal, because when you see a dead body, there is no energy coming off of that. And the idea that you could regenerate that is, it's impossible. And it's like you have to have some kind of magic in order to resuscitate a dead thing. I mean, it's so complete. So the idea, it really informed me to the wonder of being able to bring something back for both of us was
Yeah, and
really.
It's also a real sensory experience. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but everybody's a different color when they die, depending on how they die. And there's a certain kind of pervasive stench to things, you know, like it's not, it's bearable somehow, but after you spend a little bit of time there, especially if people kind of rotted, you want to get away from that. And it, you know, it affected and influenced a lot of choices I made in the morgue, you know, about like, this is a bad smell.
Yeah, and every.
There's your meatball.
How's your food out there?
I know all your lines.
And every corpse told a story, even in that morgue. You go, oh, that guy, he died clearly during an operation because there's tubes coming out of the side of his torso. Okay. Not good to know, okay, and over here, holy mackerel. So the specificity of the death too, which we brought into the morgue, because I don't think it was written, Bruce, that we went in and went, here's your meatball. We kind of filled in that, made it specific.
Kathleen, we'll bounce back and forth between Re-Animator and Bride. For you, coming into, what did you do in prep?
No, they sent me to K&B Effects Group, which
Fun
was
times.
yeah, which was just about as much of a medical class as you could possibly get. These guys were artists who had already been to the morgue and done this kind of research and studied all kinds of veins and marbleization of the skin and what it actually looks like when you have skin that's missing. So my birth by fire was, well, first of all, the audition was insane. And then I got the job, and I was like, "Hi, I wonder what the first one was like." And they're like, "Well, here, take this tape home, and you can watch it." And then I watched your guys' movie, and I was like, "Holy shit! What have I got myself into?" Okay, so, but then I went to K&B, and they did like 15 different casts of my body, my face, my head. Probably, I definitely, and I've said this before, but the Bride of Re-Animator is a standard by which I measure everything else I've ever done on a film set, because it put my own body and my own soul into a patient's level that was, I think the only thing that I've actually seen that could possibly compare, and I'm putting myself on a very high plateau here, but watching Leonardo get eaten by a bear in The Revenant was like, okay, see, I did that, kinda. So having to hold your face in a cast where you're screaming with straws coming out of your nose so you could actually breathe, with your whole head just plastered and like that for 15 minutes. I mean, one
Had
day,
your life cast done, you mean?
well, I had that was the day where I did all these different casts, and one of the casts was my head, the screaming where my head is coming off of my body, and it's like, and that was a day for me. That actually,
To say nothing of every day that you were on set and how many hours you were in makeup. We were still in REM sleep when you were like in makeup.
yes, yeah, I got to set at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I was there until 2 o'clock in the morning, and had full 24-hour turnarounds, and looking like Karen Silkwood after an acid bath. Just like, it was just like, oh, my hair was just, it's amazing I have hair, but it was a challenge, and I hold it near, I wouldn't change a second of that experience, because those, to quote Kelly Clarkson, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you have to go to those levels as an actor if you want to be a part of this, illicit group that is just, goes for it and doesn't, you can't care what you look like. You just have to embrace what you're feeling. And that's what an actor is.
You totally went for it in that movie,
Well,
I gotta
thank you.
say.
At a very young age. I was like 21, 22.
And
Was I drinking? I don't know.
No. It's so sweet all the
Should've.
time too. Like 4 hours later, she comes out sweet. Next morning, same deal. She was just completely resilient. Never saw any kind of moment of like, God damn it, this is bad for me.
I earned
So
it.
gracious.
You're so sweet. Thank you. You guys you made it amazing.
That was a very
think-
emotional performance. I'm not in the movie, but I just want to say, that was a very emotional performance, a beautiful performance, I think. Even under all the makeup and everything, it was a very heartfelt performance.
Thank you. And I feel the same way about yours too. I have such respect. We've both been through the cheese grater. So, but yeah. We've all apparently gotten a hold of some Re-Animator fluid. This is like a beautiful looking cast. Like 30 years later, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm very
amazing.
is that you guys are going to see this movie the way it should be seen. You know, we're talking about this theater background. There's some kind of alchemy that Stewart sort of achieved with this movie. Most of the time when you go to the movies, it's a fairly passive existence. You're watching it, it's happening, and you're kind of on your own. There's this kind of, in the theater, there is a flow between the stage and the audience. It's a group experience. It's kind of hard to do with cinema. It's up there, but there's something that this movie can, in some instances, transcend that and actually have that kind of group experience. And that's really hard to do with film. So it's always best seen in a dark theater film. So,
Bruce and Jeffrey, which film posed the most challenges? Was it Bride or was it Re-Animator?
that's a good one.
No, it was the first one, definitely for me, because I didn't know really where I was headed in the first one. In the second one, I knew exactly who my character was and knew exactly where it was going to go. But there was a lot more discovery in the first one, and it was hard for me to put my mind around kind of what the first one was going to end up like. It wasn't until we saw dailies, we started to see dailies, to go like,
Oh,
yeah, I was like, whoa, that's working. That's like really working.
yeah, this is singing.
Yeah, it had a musicality to it, it had a muscularity to it, it had a kind of pace that you just,
And it was
I had
shot
really
so
seen it-
well.
seen it
And
before.
it was shot so well.
Yeah, it was kind of like, this is so incredibly outrageous, but well done, kind of really well done, outrageous. Like, people could buy this, you know, but getting to it, getting to understand like what your part in it was, or what you were gonna be like, or how you were gonna react to, you know, like, because Barbara and I didn't know each other at all. And I knew of Jeff, but I didn't know him. And,
Right.
It was, you know, and Stuart didn't know him either, so it was a real discovery, and I didn't always like, you know, where it was, what I read I didn't like. I wasn't even gonna do it. I'm like, this.
What do you mean?
I didn't, I threw it across the room when I read it. I didn't like it.
Well, you have to realize that what we read was a lot different than what wound up too.
Yeah, and I had to kind of sit with Stuart and them and audition for it a few times, but I really didn't understand. I was like, this is so out of bounds. This is so unbelievably out of bounds. I don't think I can be part of this. It's like I'm horrified, fascinated, disgusted. I literally threw the script across the room.
How'd they get you to do it then?
Because they called me back and they said, oh. do you know Jeff Combs? And I'm like, yeah, I know Jeff Combs. He's a real actor. And he's like, well, he's doing the Re-Animator. All right, I'll go again. And then I had to read with somebody that wasn't Barbara, and they were off me then, right? It was like that audition didn't go well at all. And they said, well, I think we'll see this guy one more time, and I have to read with Barbara. But I didn't know how to feel about it. In doing it, I didn't know how to feel
I don't
about
think
it.
any of us knew how to feel about it when we started. I had been doing a play in town, somewhat like Herbert, but far more vulnerable, broken, and so I was kind of already in the range of Herbert, and so all I had to do was get rid of the doubt and the insecurity and just be an arrogant prick, and
It's quite a stretch.
range. And so, but at the same time, I'd never done anything in this genre really before, not like this. And so it was just a leap of faith, I guess, Stewart's enthusiasm, and frankly, what else am I going to do? What else is there?
You're an actor looking for a job, and you got one.
And you got one, and at that point I hadn't done much film, and I thought, well, listen, at the least I will be on a set for 3 weeks learning this craft, this new craft of what does a camera do?
It was your first thing, right?
That wasn't my first thing. I'd done a couple of day things here and there, and I also did like a really horror movie that called Frightmare, actually, some years earlier, and that was not a pleasant experience.
It was Days of Your Life, right?
It was not days of your life. And so,
Me. I did that.
so we all went into this not really knowing, but maybe thinking, well, we'll get something out of this for ourselves. Maybe I'll get a scene out of it that I can put on my reel. Because I honestly said to myself, okay, this thing's bloody. No one will see it.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too.
I didn't think that. I didn't think no one would, because you just said something. You said Stewart had this enthusiasm, and I was infused with Stewart's enthusiasm during the audition and whatever, and when we were rehearsing, because you guys were all in by the time we were rehearsing, because we were rehearsing.
Well, when you're in, you're in.
You're in. I mean, and we had a lot of fun in rehearsal, but you know, I remember kind of being directed by Stewart during the audition and feeling really jazzed by that, you know, because he, you know, is a very strong director.
On the other hand, you know, I was 31 when I did this. You were same age? We were 31 years old, so we weren't like, we weren't kids, we weren't 21, and we'd already done a lot of theater. You'd done some film work and TV work, so it wasn't like we were green. We had some experience, and I you know, I think we played younger than we were, which was a real plus. But I think the experience that we brought to it also helped this project.
You guys brought a reality to it. You brought the levity.
Well, we heard the
being
thing that Bruce
convinced.
and I did. We heard the music of it, the back and forth. No, that came later. But we're just saying, you know, this relationship and me trying to convince him and him having legitimate reasons to resist. I mean, this is classic storytelling, right? To be lured in by a magical idea and it just destroys your world.
I just needed to rant, actually.
So Re-Animator benefited like no other movie that I've ever been in since by a lot of happy accidents. I mean, editing is an unsung hero in this movie. The music, I mean, we didn't start knowing that it was we didn't know that. Mac Holbert, the director of photography, the way he shoots this movie, these are ingredients that make a great movie, and I've done movies after that. It's not easy for all of those elements to come into harmony like that. It really isn't.
And I think tone is one of the hardest things. We were talking about that earlier.
Tone.
Tone is a really hard thing to get right. And, you know, it annoys me sometimes when I watch movies and I think, that actor's in a different movie than that actor.
Right.
What? That scene doesn't feel like it fits. And the tone in this movie is pretty even
Consistent.
and consistent. And that's a shocker, considering that initially Stewart didn't envision it, and you can talk about this, Jeffrey, as, you know,
Serious.
as comedic as it turned out to be.
He did not see it as a funny movie. And that actually is one of the bedrocks of why it became such a success, because he approached it dead serious. This is a serious movie. There are no laughs. Barbara and I sat once in the castle in Italy when we were shooting Castle Freak, and we were talking about Re-Animator and how the humor in it, and Stewart said, it's not a funny movie. And we were like, What? Because in his mind, he didn't approach it that way. And God bless him for not approaching it that way. Because we, maybe behind his back, but maybe not, but just as performers, Bruce and I went, okay, this is so bloody. We have got to find places, don't we? We have to find places where we can release a little bit. We're not going to go with it, but we're going to, put the head on the paper thing, because it needs to do that in order. But it is funny. It's gruesomely funny. We have to find those release points, and so we were just lucky to have that kind of instinct in tandem with Stuart's dead seriousness about making a serious movie. And then he had to decide when they came to him and said, we have two ways to go with the music, Stuart. We can go deadly serious, or we can do the score that you all know. And thank God that they chose to do that, because that's another way of setting the tone for this movie.
Well, on the flip side of that, you're talking about finding the music with Bruce. I think David Gale was an integral part of finding that music as well, and he kind of grounded it and brought a little bit of gravity to it. You talk about working with him.
My callback was with David Gale. I'd never seen him before. He walked in the room and, hi, how are you? And we did the basement scene, where he comes down and sees me, with the microscope, and I eventually hit him with the shovel and take his head off. Fucking plagiarist. Anyway, so that was the first time I saw him, and I went, okay, well, this is perfect. This guy is perfect for this. The arch and malevolent and yet charismatic, and he was such a sweetheart. To be stuck, you have to realize this, to be stuck under that table with your head in a false bottom of a pan for hours, and he never made
He was a smoker, right? So it made it really hard. He seemed like some PA come up and going, hey, can you just, like a
PA? It was me. He'd go,
Jeff did
Jeff, can you give me a cigarette? Yeah, sure do. How's it going in there? You'll be out. Oh, sorry. He was a sweet man. A sweet man, and it breaks my heart that he hasn't shared decades of the joy that audiences have had with his performance. It really does. It's just, life's not fair.
Robert, did you want to say anything about David? Because you share a lot of scenes with him as well.
Oh, shared a little bit.
Yes, I did. He couldn't have been nicer to me, and sweeter and kinder, and really, I had a very difficult scene to do with him, and everybody talks to me about that scene like it's some big deal. And to be honest with you, I read the material, and I was like, oh, this scene is really interesting. Really, I like it. It's kind of cool, and it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be hard for me to do that, but it's kind of funny, and it goes with the movie, and so I didn't have a lot of fear about that scene at all. I really didn't. It didn't faze me. And you guys were talking about casting when you got the role. I wasn't the first choice for Meg because I hadn't even auditioned yet. But the girl who got the part, her mother read the script and said, no, you're not doing this movie. I don't know how old she was. But then they had a second casting and they go, oh, well, that girl dropped out. So, I came in and read with these guys, and I didn't know they had the parts already, and they were so good. And I thought, wow, I hope they get the parts. I really I didn't know that they already had the part. But anyway, it worked out, and I got the part. But I didn't read with David. I just read with you guys, and he was just a lovely person and a great actor, a really nice man. And I'm not telling stories out of school at all. This has been documented that his wife didn't know about that scene. His wife had a little trouble with that scene. I don't know if she showed up on set or,
No.
well, how did that go down?
No,
Found
we
out
had a
about that.
screening with the Science Fiction Academy or something, and I just remember leaving, it was during the day or late afternoon. And
Academy of Science Fiction and Horror.
Yes, it was down by the Desi Lou Studios, kind of down in their second story sort of screen room. I remember going out on the street, and she was out in the street, and David's like, and she's going, how could you? Now, wait, listen, David was a New York stage actor, and had done nothing like this before, so this was really a baptism of blood, actually.
He was lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Barbara, do you mind me asking why you did not come back for Bride? Were you asked? Was there an incarnation of the script in which you were more like a part of it in some way, shape, or form?
Well, initially when, at one point Stuart was going to direct it, and then the script was going to be a little bit different, and yes, it was a bigger part for me. But then stuff happens, right? And Brian was going to direct it, and then it was a different script, and really I wasn't in it at all. I think, I don't, maybe they had one little cameo.
We had a scene at the very beginning, and I thought it was absurd. They had a actress double you,
Yeah.
and they cut it. I'm glad
They just cut it, yeah. Yeah, because they
It was
wanted me
you
to
coming
just.
alive.
Yeah, me
from
coming
the-
alive, and I think it was just, yeah, it was like a cameo, and I thought,
Yeah, that's all it was.
and at the time, I said, well, why did I want to do a cameo like that? It's
You've
just-
done it already. You've done it, and
Yeah.
how can you? Yeah.
So then they cut it anyway, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So no, I really wasn't really invited to be a part of it.
Now, you
And
asked
besides,
about,
Barbara and I had done everything we could in fraternity vacation.
That's true. Yes.
and you asked about Bride. Bride had its own challenges. Bride of Re-Animator had its own challenges for us. The script was sort of, talk about tone, it was kind of,
The old Englishness went.
patchwork,
Yeah.
it was going for gag lines, and it was a little harder. It was a lot harder to, because it was not of a piece.
Well, I'm always curious how a sequel like that takes off. I mean, obviously there was the tailwind of Re-Animator fueling the success. So, creatively, how much was Stewart involved? Was he on set? Like, what were his duties? Obviously, Brian was
I don't know, the
director.
only thing I heard is that at some point, Stewart's, my phone, make this go. It's fine. Stewart's agent kind of informed him, if you want to have a further, people that want to have a long career, don't do sequels.
Oh, is that right?
I heard that, yeah. So sort of,
Do you think he didn't want to do the sequel then, or?
listen, there's all kinds of factors that go into why you do something and don't. Sometimes it's something like that gets in your head and you go, yeah, maybe that is, if I want to do other things and then it's looked down upon you if you do a sequel, then maybe I shouldn't do it. It's like chess. And then there's like maybe money, maybe money has something to do with it too. Doesn't it always with us at one point or another? How
Not
much?
anymore.
Yeah. And when Stewart pulled out, the script changed because there were things that Stewart had contributed to Bride and said, if you're going to use those, I'm one of the writers, and so those were excised. And then what do you have? You have a start date, and you have the money in place, and you gotta come up with something else. So it kind of
Yeah.
challenged.
What's the bigger draw, Halloween or Bride of Re-Animator?
I think it's a fair toss.
Toss?
Yes, definitely. I think that they're both amazing franchises, and what's amazing is that Bride and this is a two shows where Halloween has this overabundance, and fans are fans, and people that enjoy honest performances and compelling stories and things that resonate, that make you feel like, oh God, I actually relate to those characters. Those are the ones that actually last. So I've throughout my career, whatever it's been, I think that the ones where I've actually felt like, oh wow, that was really an experience for me, it's become an experience for the people that have watched it as well. And that's what lasts. So it's great. It's a wonderful testimony to you guys, to what you did before I stepped on board. And I was lucky enough to have a character that was pretty out there and willing to play the big boys game. So yeah, I've been saying, I just said this to Barbara today. I said for years I've been saying, oh my God, yeah, Bride, Re-Animator. I ripped my own heart out of my chest. I'm not ripping my own heart out of my chest. I'm ripping her heart out of my chest.
That's right. It's Meg's heart.
So that was like, oh, it was kind of a revelation.
It just dawned on you recently.
Yesterday. Hello. Roots, very very important.
Well, there was no real heart, as there was no real cats.
Well, there's always something real. There's the reality that, you know what, that heart was beating in my hand. I mean, I ripped that out, and I went through a moment where, I mean, you have to, as an actor, if you're gonna go and you're gonna die on film, or you're going to have a baby on film, or you're gonna have your leg chopped off on film, or you're gonna get beaten to a pulp, I mean, you have to go there. If you're gonna get scared to, shitless, endless, you have to be able to say, I'm willing. And you're only as good as the people that surround you. Because this is a game of trust and enthusiasm and showing up, and you have to respect those that you're working with and feel safe. So I felt safe. And we had a great time. I mean, I felt safe with you on fraternity vacation. I mean, I've done some, done some stuff. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to know that people that they watched it, they liked it. I mean, that's why we're doing it. I'm not doing it just so I can watch myself, although I do. I enjoy it.
Is there a way to bring the house lights up so we can see audience questions? Or am I just gonna have a spotlight on my... Right there, he's raising his hand. I can see you.
So, I know a long time ago, Stuart Gordon was toying with the idea for House of Re-Animator during the Bush administration.
You had to bring it up.
Can you guys give us a little information about that, or where you would like to see the Re-Animator franchise?
Sure, we'll direct your evening.
Well, I think it is a great idea. House of Re-Animator, the White House. Vice President has a massive heart attack. He cannot be dead because he's really the one who runs the country. What do? We run out of anything. I know a guy if we can find him. And so they bring Herbert West, two guys, frickin' frack. And so we can resuscitate him, and it works for a little while. And then it goes really bad. So this is a kind of a nice tree to hang your ornaments on here, But Stuart was adamant that it would be Bush, and that it would be Cheney, and then it would be Mrs. Bush, and we're really going to stick it to him, right? And my thing was like, well, wait a minute, when did Re-Animator become a political tool? I mean, really, when did that
Dr. Gruboff is a historical character.
Here, what does...
Miskatonic you.
Well,
you can go there.
I don't want to... Hans Gruber is also in what other movie? No, what? Die Hard. Yes. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. That's Hans Gruber. Okay, so, anyway, Stuart really wanted it on the nose, politically on the nose. And I kept going, why? You are splitting your audience, and we can make this statement like Dr. Strangelove. You can speak to power without being so fucking obvious. But he was adamant about it, and I frankly think investors would kind of didn't want to put money behind something that would split their audience. Okay? So So that's why I think it just didn't get off the ground.
Yeah, he had a really good cast, sort of set.
Yeah.
Would have been.
Yep. So that's the answer to that.
Right here, wait a minute.
Yes, yes. When they were first putting it together, they were like, what are we going to do? It was Stuart and Brian used the, how can we do this? Maybe we could do it like a 6-part TV thing as opposed to, oh, well, maybe we ought to do a movie. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm glad they decided to do that.
TV was so much different than landscape TV. Was so much
Yeah.
different. Let's see way in the back. Right here.
Yes. It's not a
Fair
big
question. I don't appreciate the question. It was bigger and better than ever before. Trust me. Oh, don't get me started. It's gonna be a
Please
good
start,
weekend.
Re-Animate.
I think it's a great note to end on. So, everybody, round of applause. Everybody, this is Re-Animator.